Hey everyone, this is Tuhan Aditya from LightHaven. Today we are going to be talking about the context in which empty hands exists and functions within the Filipino martial arts. The first thing to say and the first thing to understand is that most Filipino martial arts are weapon-based arts. So stick, sword, knife, improvised weapons. This is our forte. Empty hands, generally the way that we think about it, especially in our art of Pekiti, is that empty hands comes in the end. The way I use the weapon is the way that I use empty hands. However, it is primarily a weapon art, not an empty hand art. We spend more times on weapons and fighting against weapons than on empty hand or grappling. Some of the misconceptions I've seen around empty hands in the Filipino martial arts is this assumption that just because I can deal with a weapon means that I can deal with empty hands. But that's not always the case, because there are certain things that apply when I have to deal with a weapon which may not apply when I'm having to deal with empty hands. I was recently sent this video of, I think it was a Krav Maga person, ironically enough, criticizing a Filipino martial artist for showing an entry to an elbow break. Now, I don't know what the full technique that they were trying to teach was, so I can't really judge it for its effectiveness. However, I do often have issues with the way empty hands is taught in the Filipino martial arts. One, we don't spar enough empty hands. I mean, most people don't spar at all. And so you very rarely get to work against someone who's actively trying to resist you. Number two, oftentimes the people who are teaching this are really big guys, so it's really easy for them to throw people around or to manipulate them. I don't have that size, I don't have that strength, and so I have to rely a lot more on things like technique, effective striking, positioning to make things work. Within this context though, I still do think that there is a lot of misrepresentation by Filipino martial artists as well as to how their empty hands may or may not work. And I have a kind of formula that I believe might help you to put into context where it will work, why it will work, how it will work, and hopefully give you a better idea of how to train it. So some of the most common ways you see empty hands demonstrated in the Filipino martial arts is that he is going to punch me. And oftentimes, one more time please, you will see people grab the hand and then look to break the elbow either this way or this way. And then maybe they go for some other locks. Maybe they'll go for a lock like this and then work around it. I'm not sure. There are different ways that people can do it. So the most common thing that you see as a counter attack, where this hand kind of just stays where it is, and now I can look to break it, and then when the other hand comes, now people will start doing like weird locky type things, or now they'll go across to this arm. Now if he starts to try to straighten up again, now maybe then I'll go into this kind of lock, or whatever happens from here. Now you see your lock flows develop. And the common critique is, when he's punching, nobody's going to keep the hand here, which is kind of true, but I also don't fully agree with it, because you see this often in professional sports as well, where people overcommit a lot to the strike. And I've also often seen people who are untrained don't know what a guard is, and so often they're not going to even come back here. They often leave a lot more exposed than you'd expect them to be. But for the sake of the argument, let's just assume that yes, he is not going to keep his arm out here. Okay, so let's first establish that. So the context of the Filipino martial arts is weapons, right? And the understanding is, or the thought process is, that if he's giving me an angle one and I go direct, he still has his knife to keep attacking me. Now of course we train to be able to jam and parry and keep this away or control this, or a whole bunch of other stuff. The way that my teacher Grant Tuan talks about it is that if he's cutting me, this hand should now be mine. How you achieve that depends on the specific situation, but even if it's just something like this, I have this habit of grabbing, right? So even when I spar and I come close, you'll often see me just grab that knife hand. Either way, if I'm making contact with his weapon hand, I want to control it in some way, shape or form, or at least control it long enough to be able to finish the fight. But that's a whole other conversation, and we're talking about how the weapon arts are linked to the empty hand arts. The idea is that I want to make it hard for him, if not impossible for him, to hurt me with his weapon. And I might do that by first cutting the weapon before controlling the arm. He gives me an angle one, I could not cut his arm, I could only parry, but now this hand I want to think of capturing it, and now maybe I try to distract him like this, he parries, and then I come here, and now maybe I disarm from here with a cut or something like that. But the idea is that I am controlling this arm and I am making it hard for him to attack me with his weapon, right? The defanging the snake principle. Now, when we go empty hands, the idea is often the same. The idea is that we are assuming that he is armed. I may not be able to see it, but the assumption is that he is armed. And so I am attacking his arm to make it hard for him to attack me with his weapon. That's the idea, that I am trying to destroy his arm to make it hard for him to attack me with his weapon. However, when we come to an empty hands context, when he is punching me and he may not have the weapon over here, this may be really impossible to do, and while I am doing this, he may be punching me in the face with the other arm, because we are so much closer, and very rarely do people just come with a straight punch and a single straight punch. They're probably going to either go on one and go around, or a 1-2, or something or the other, right? The issue is in the line of thought that I need to deal with empty hands the same way that I would fight against weapons. What for me at least, the correct way of thinking of it should be that I need to assume that he is armed and deal with this fight with the same amount of urgency as if I knew he was armed. What that means is that I don't have the luxury of parrying and moving around, and then looking for a way in. I don't have the luxury of just like moving, ducking. It's not a sport. The idea is that as soon as I see an opening, I need to be looking to enter and finish the fight. Right? That sense of urgency needs to be there. Now, within this urgency, we have to add in the Filipino martial arts empty hands as we know it. Now, for me, where it works is in a clinch type situation, because here, whether we're here, whether he has a collar tie of his own, here his arms are in a place where I can start applying really quick bang, really quick sort of joint locks. And then based on his reactions, I can either continue with strikes and eventually do a takedown, or do another lock flow from, again, what his reaction was. So simple example is, I've applied this arm bar over here. The common reaction is going to start posturing up. I'm going to use this to enter into this like figure 4 Americana kind of variation with this elbow, and then end up in the takedown. But I have to be able to get there, right? So very often you're going to get really close, because the Filipino martial arts idea of empty hands is really close range, and all my striking has to happen within this really close range. But what happens within this close range is that we tend to tie up with each other in some way, shape or form. Maybe in these collar ties like this, maybe in something like this, and from here is where I need to be able to work. Here is where my locks and my joint destructions and my muscle tendon destructions, all of that comes in. The other thing to understand is when you sing things like this, this is coming from that weapon context again, where I'm assuming he has a weapon and I'm looking to make sure he drops that weapon, and I break his arm so he drops that weapon. However, for me, the correct way of thinking of this is, he is attacking me, this is first to his eyes, right? And now from here, maybe he pulls his hand back, maybe he doesn't. If he pulls his hand back, so punch and pull your hand back. If he pulls his hand back, this is going to go to try and clear the path for the other hand to come, okay? But let's say that he doesn't pull the hand back. My reaction needs to, instead of trying to do this, I should be trying to finish the fight. So maybe I try to pull him in to that elbow. But as I pull him in, he jams that elbow. So just keep your hand in front of your face. I pull him in and just open your hand, and he jams that elbow. Now from here, I still have two options now. I can either go towards that elbow, or he's jammed the elbow, or I can look to go towards this side, right? But my first reaction was not to try and destroy his elbow. My first reaction was to try to finish the fight, and somehow his elbow got in the way. And now we're in a slightly alternative position. Now do I go like this? Do I from here go here to strike and then step it in, and then from here clear this to come into an elbow and then tie up? It depends on what the context is. One other option that works pretty well is you start to, instead of trying to destroy this, you start to destroy this, because essentially what you're trying to do is craft an entry towards him. So as he's punching, I know what his target is, right? most empty hand strikes are coming towards center line, whether it's coming straight or from the outside. And so I'm just putting my elbow in front of center line. I'm looking to break that fist or cause damage to that fist. And now from here, even if he pulls back, I'm looking to find a way in. If he pulls back, I've still done a lot of damage to his arms. If he doesn't pull back, I can now start to again drop down for elbows, start looking for little like sneaky kicks to the shin or to the groin. Clear this completely, start striking. It really depends on again what's happening, but Filipino martial arts, empty hands is about being close. And the locks aren't the point. We do this because it looks cool, and at somewhere down the line we decided looking cool meant more than being effective, right? But the locks, if I find a lock, I will take it. A really common one I often find in clinching in Muay Thai, especially because I'm generally shorter than people, is I'll pop this and I'll come up here into this like modified head and arm triangle. And then from here I look for takedowns or knees, a whole bunch of stuff. I find this in stick sparring, I find this in empty hand sparring. But you see the opportunity and you go for it. Similarly, you see arm drags, exposing the back and you chase it. It's the same kind of concepts as you would find in any kind of wrestling or grappling art. The only thing is, my job is to be able to finish this fight. In the Filipino martial arts, the way that we do it now is we finish the fight. We try to end the fight in a way where he cannot fight back and he's on the ground so I can run away. But 1, 2, and then throws like this. It's not really going to happen like that. Instead, you have to find, if you find these throws, take them. But your first instinct must be to finish the fight. He's punching, I'm here, I'm going for this hammer fist, he stops it. Now maybe I'm going to use this to enter in here. Or now maybe I use this to take the back. Or he stops this and now maybe I use it in some sort of like a trapping series over there. Or again, he stopped this, or maybe now I split this, go for a headbutt, hit the groin, elbow. It really depends. Pull his head in, go for that bicep bump, and then elbow. So the beauty of the Filipino martial arts is that it has everything. It has close fist striking, open hand striking, throws, joint manipulation, and breaks. You just have to think about how to apply them in a more intelligent manner. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, if you learned from what you saw, please do like and share this video. If you have any questions, please leave that in the comments down below. Please do subscribe to the channel. All of these things really do help out the school and the channel a lot. A huge thank you to all of our patrons and our members on our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you'd like to know more about our Patreon page or our YouTube membership and the exclusive content that we offer there, check out the link in the description down below. Thank you Zarir for all his help, and thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.